Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast. This is Danielle Z, MFT in the making, motivator and mental health maven. And today I'm on with another Danielle, Danielle Costanzo, and she just opened her own practice as an LMFT. Congratulations. And in Philadelphia. So welcome, Danielle. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, as a brand new, newly, new business owner and, new with your brand new spanking new license, I'm so jealous. Um, just can you just tell me maybe a little bit about, the kind of the clients you're working with and your client base now that you are out on your own?
Yeah. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, I definitely focus on family and relationships, but I actually mostly work with individuals navigating complex relationship and family dynamics. Um, Being in Center City, Philadelphia, I work with a lot of young professionals navigating, all the transitions that come with that stage of life.
Hmm.
Relationships with work stuff, which comes down to a lot of relationships too. And I also work with a lot of men.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about this. So, because as a coach and potential therapist, and as everybody knows, right now I am coaching a lot. I would say majority of my client base on the coaching side is female. And I found in my just from as an entrepreneur and also in the therapy world, even I'll share with you that my program that I'm in, for my MFT program at Kane is where there's all females. Is all 7 women in my cohort, no males. And I think there has only been, I think my professor was saying, because he was in my program as well, that he's seen kind of a shift in the mental health field. So I would love your perspective on kind of what do you think are like, because in my perspective from just the coaching side, I see a little bit of a resistance when it comes to coaching and men and maybe getting help or that stigma that they're weak for getting help.
Yeah. I'm with you. I graduated, my cohort for grad school was 23 people and only one man. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
there's not a ton of male therapists out there. And even though there are male therapists, I've noticed that a lot of, I mean, I'm kind of biased because they're coming to me, but a lot of men tend to seek female therapists, and a lot of women tend to seek female therapists.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I definitely think men are positioned because of societal expectations, because of conditioning with when they're growing up,
Hmm.
to have some more resistance to seeking help in general. And this is like the ultimate way to seek help is going to a therapist. But I'm noticing like a huge shift. More and more men are going to therapy for the first time. And I make it a point to acknowledge exactly what you just mentioned, right? Of like,
Hmm.
I mean, I acknowledge that with all my clients, right? That
Of course.
you overcame a lot of barriers to be here today and to start this
Hmm.
process. And as a therapist, I have experienced putting off finding a new therapist or something like that. It's a daunting process, like logistics wise. It's a huge time investment, it's a financial investment.
Yeah.
So, but I do make it a point to acknowledge exactly what you just said with men in particular, to really celebrate the fact that that they found themselves in my office. Um, there's so much bias against men being emotionally expressive. It's becoming more and more destigmatized, which is amazing,
Yes,
but
I love that.
this deeply rooted bias against men seeking help, men admitting their vulnerability, acknowledging their vulnerability, and you know finding themselves in this space that is in a lot of ways has been geared towards women. A lot of it is
Hmm.
geared towards women. Even when you see on social media, uh, and I've been guilty of this in the past because I am such a girly girl that
Yeah.
I have the instinct to kind of like make my office cutesy, and
Yeah, yeah.
my like Instagram aesthetic cutesy, but I've been really intentional about uh using some more like earthy tones to make sure that it's evident that this space is gender neutral and it's not
Yeah.
for women, even though I'm a female therapist.
Yeah, no, and I think you make a great point. It's so funny because I always say I have a female therapist as my therapist, but I always say I would love to also get a man just to see because their brains are literally wired differently than ours. So just to gain a whole different perspective. So I love, I mean, maybe one day. Right now, I have a therapist myself. I have two business coaches. Like I'm coached up. But but at some point, I think I would love to work with a male just because of the perspective they bring to the room. And I think they would see things from a different lens that maybe I wasn't seeing from. And I love that you hold the space for, the space that you create for your male clients, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's a stigma around mental health and getting help in general,
Mhm.
but then even more for males. Like I think in one of my textbooks, because I'm still in the school realm, Danielle's out of it, I'm still in it. I think I read that a lot of young boys, like adolescent age, they're the biggest population that is underdiagnosed for depression because of what you were kind of saying. Is like they're not given the space to express themselves, and they're always, we're conditioned to be like, they're always supposed to hold their feelings in or not be, not cry, and I think also too, I would love your perspective on from a relationship perspective as well. I think men and women friendships are very different in that as well. I'm sure you're learning with your clients. I've found that, and not to generalize, or there's no judgment, this is a safe space, but I feel like men, the way they, even around them, amongst themselves, it's hard for them to express and be vulnerable with their other male friends with that, because of that judgment, because of that stigma. So where do they find the time to heal, find the place to heal?
Definitely. And I definitely, I'm sure you've heard this as a coach, that line of like, I've never told anyone this before,
Mm-hmm.
or I would never feel comfortable sharing this with anyone else, which is, of course, a double-edged sword. It's flattering and touching, and it's gratifying to be that person to someone. At the same time, it's deeply saddening to be
It is.
aware that you're the only person that person feels comfortable sharing that with. I hear that from women, but I hear that much more from my male clients, when it comes to, you're right, like not always having those relationships that they feel they can be as vulnerable in. It depends on the guy, obviously. My male
Mhm.
clients are just as much of individuals and just as unique from one another as any of my other clients, but
Yeah.
it is, yeah, the friendships tend to be, uh, I don't know, sometimes lacking that level of vulnerability. Because
Hmm.
as you know, like it's more comfortable to be vulnerable with someone that you can sense is being vulnerable and open with you. And so if you're not getting that in a friendship from someone else, you're not necessarily going to feel safe being vulnerable and
Hmm.
transparent about your own weaknesses and struggles.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that word safe. I actually just read a book. I'm not sure if you know who, Jessica Baum. She just came out. She originally wrote this book, Anxiously Attached. And for those of you who don't know, on the show, attachment theory is something we study a lot as marriage and family therapists. But she just came out with her second book, Safe, and it's how, to form, more secure relationships and, live a very, fulfilling, resilient life. And I think too, I think what people, in my opinion, don't realize, and I love that the way that we were just talking about this before the podcast episode, is marriage and family therapists are trained to think very differently than, a licensed professional counselor or a social worker or a drug addiction counselor, excuse me. I mean, not to say there's no bad or there's no wrong or right, but we are just trained to think, very systemically, and like, more community driven, and instead of diagnosing somebody, upon first visit, we're gonna peel back the layers to, figure out, hey, what are your relationships like, what is your environment like, what do you go home to every day, because that makes an impact on your mental health.
Yeah, yeah. And gender is systemic,
Yeah,
right? Like I'm
absolutely.
sure you and I could go off on like a huge tangent
Oh,
about
we
systemic approach, but yeah, I mean, I think it's so inherently destigmatizing, the systemic approach, because so often will people, men included, blame themselves for some of their shortcomings, and to contextualize that and to acknowledge the role of your upbringing, of society, of
Hmm.
gender. Men are not socialized to have the same vocabulary, emotional vocabulary as women are. They're not given the same opportunity. So to really, acknowledge that context is a big part of my work with men too. Like, of course, this is not coming easily to you. You haven't been
Yeah,
through this.
absolutely. You just opened my eyes. Actually, that perspective just opened up my eyes to like a, you know, the fact that this might be working with you might be the first time a man potentially, in their 20s and 30s after living 20 years of their life feels safe enough to truly express feelings, which is to me very sad that potentially somebody could live 20 years or however much of their lives and not be in a safe space to express themselves, like from a true genuine place. That's very disheartening for me to,
Yeah. I find it bittersweet, right? Like it's sad, and it's also like, wow, what a great opportunity this is happening at all in your life.
true. True. I guess too, I would love your perspective because I'm a feelings person. I'm big emotions. And I've expressed them and I've worked on them many times. And I love, this is like the Feeling and Healing podcast. But I would love your perspective on, I guess the people that you work with, men and women both. But I always like to say that you cannot regulate an emotion that you haven't felt yet. So, when people come to you and they're like they are expressing these feelings for the first time, like what do you do to, I guess, maybe normalize that or just, guide them through the process of like literally, pun intended, processing emotions?
Yeah, yeah. I love that saying. Can you say that again? You can't.
Sure. What was it? Is it you can't regulate an emotion you've never felt? Is that the one you want me to repeat? Yeah, you
Yeah.
cannot regulate an emotion you've never felt. And also another favorite of mine that I might print on a t-shirt is emotions demand to be felt.
Ah, I love that. Yeah.
There you can't, yes, you can stifle them. You can try as hard as you want. I don't care. You're gonna give a good college try, but they're gonna come out eventually.
Yeah. Um, I this is where I find that use of self can
Mm,
be very beneficial, is validating it to the point of being like, if I were you, I would probably feel that way too.
yes, yes.
We further normalize the emotion that's coming up. And I don't know, my one liner around this is like, of course you feel that way about this. You have a pulse.
Yes, yeah, you're human. Yeah, you're a human being.
Time that you were awake, that you're having a reaction to this. Two, like I love, this kind of goes into what we mentioned before logging on as the acceptance and commitment therapy
Mm,
approach of acknowledging the values that underlie an emotional reaction. If you're wrong
yes.
in some way, if you're treated a certain way, and you are reacting with an intense emotion, to me, I'm searching for the strengths and values that underlie that reaction,
Mhm.
and what your values are in a relationship that you're having that reaction, that you're activated in that way, um, and how that connects to really beautiful and important values, and how
I
that
love that you brought that up.
yeah.
I love that you brought that up because you're absolutely right. Like we are brought into thinking of systems thinking, right? Like we are born into a system
Mhm.
that has different beliefs, values that are then ingrained in a society too. Societally, we were just talking about, you could think about gender roles, and those are thrust upon us at a very young age. And then we enter the world and then try to, grow up and form a life for ourselves and then form other relationships. So it's going to have an impact on us psychologically and mentally as we walk through the world.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm big on especially now, and I think going back to just from what I'm picking up of just generational stuff. And that's another thing too. I've just thought of this actually. generationally, like, I always, I'm sure you've read it, the book, It Didn't Start With You. Forgive me, I forget the author right now, but um things are past, traumas, and also healing and traits and emotional responses are passed from generation to generation. So the work that the men that you're working with now, and women that you're working with now, they're doing to potentially heal generational cycles is so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you say that because when you shared that quote of you can't, um,
You can't regulate an emotion that you cannot feel. Yeah.
yes, thank you. You
No,
saw
of course, no problem. I'll repeat it as much as you want.
along the same lines, I was thinking like I've heard myself saying you can't interrupt a pattern you haven't identified yet. And I
Oh
think
my
about
God, I love that.
with like
I'm gonna write that one down.
family generational patterns. And sometimes people will feel some resistance toward looking backwards because they want to I just want to focus on interrupting whatever is happening with me right now. Like we have to conceptualize this as a pattern first. We have to like understand the pattern before we can interrupt it, where it came from and why. Um, and I don't know if you've had to do this exercise in grad school yet, but I remember how illuminating it was to do this exercise with myself of doing what's called a genogram that
Yes. Yep.
degree and seeing something about seeing it visually and it almost is like a stamp of this happened and
Mm-hmm.
this happened in this generation. It just
Mm-hmm.
got passed
And
down
the
multiple
mm-hmm.
times. And to see that the way that it flows into you and your experience and I mean, I don't know about you, but I came into this line of work for deeply personal reasons, like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
therapists. So that saying of like it was passed down until it came to me. What does that say? I'm not killing it with the sayings today.
It's all good. No, it was passed down. I don't know what's saying. But forgive me. I'm having a. It was
Channel.
passed.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But no, yeah, no. I've done I think genograms, and we work with them. I mean, sure you do them with your clients. We're taught to. It does when you visually put on paper whatever medium you're using, and you can see both. I mean, I don't know, I have a genogram of both sides, so my mom's side of my family, my dad's side of the family, and then their brother, and down to me and my brother. And when you see things, you're like, wow, like you see different, as you said, patterns like that you didn't know were there before. And you see different, I mean, for those of you who don't know, who are listening, a genogram is pretty much like a family tree, I would say. But there are certain symbols that can represent, potential, like death, divorce, emotional cutoff, estrangement, the different boundary. I mean, we could go on. We could go on and on about every single
There's
whatever symbol that there is. But it is interesting to see if, like, and I use just from my experience, like for me, um I'm very lucky. There hasn't been a pattern of emotional cutoff on either side of my family. And I would say, like, that's something that I mean, I don't anticipate that traveling through, but that's one that I see. I'm sure you've seen it too in school and with your clients. When there is emotional cutoff, that there definitely seems to be a generational pattern with it. Or, a pattern of, there's so many patterns, pattern of, being a single parent, pattern of divorce. Like it's amazing when you really do break down from generation to generation that, like, it really, like, didn't start with you, like, to bring it back. It what you've been handed is something that is a pattern, as you said, that you didn't know to interrupt.
Yeah, yeah. And it just takes a tremendous amount of work. It takes years and years of work to unlearn these things that have been normalized and to form new ways of navigating relationships that haven't been modeled for you.
Yes.
That is a tremendous amount of work to undertake to be the interrupter.
Yes, yes. I forget that they call it, maybe that's what they call them. They call them interrupters or cycle breakers or what have you. But I always say, if you are somebody that is standing up and first of all, the first thing is being aware, as you said, and recognizing it, being like, maybe this doesn't feel right, or maybe despite what society has told you, because it's super hard, I'm sure, as you know, working with your clients when family is involved, because there's that. bond. There's that societal view of family. Oh, you should always love your family. They're your family, blood's thicker than water, all those things we tell ourselves. But if a pattern that your family has perpetuated is unfortunately hurting you and hurting your relationships, it's up to you to stand up, to be like, not sure if this is the way I want to go.
Yeah.
And as you said, do the work to break that.
Yeah. Some of the most complicated relationships are family relationships because there is this biological pull toward,
Mhm.
especially a parent, um, despite how damaging the relationship can sometimes be. So you're overriding a lot to set boundaries with and to acknowledge the shortcomings of a parent. It's like one of
Yeah.
the tough ones. For that, I mean, another book recommendation to add to your list. I don't know if you've checked this one out, of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
I've heard of it. I've never read it. But
Absolutely love it.
adult, okay, I'll have to put that on my
Science in it, banger, love it.
I'll have to add that to my very long. I'm just my bookshelves are like it's all. I feel so funny when, as an aside, my friends always make fun of me because it like when I read like maybe it's the academic in me that are getting like I don't know. It's just like I don't read like fiction. Like I like Game of Thrones or like one of my friends is into like all that dragon fantasy stuff. And I'm just like, because he like that reading to him is an escape. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, no, reading is like, I want more information. So every single book that I have, like, I would say I think I don't have many fiction books. They're all about mental health, self-help, motivational, or like, biographies or autobiographies of like people that like, that are real. Because I'm just like, my mind just, that's what I gravitate towards. So, I will definitely be checking out that book because I've heard of it. Just haven't read it yet.
It's great. Yeah. It's great because it's informative and it's, again, to use that word again, like non-pathologizing, not
Hmm.
necessarily looking to like diagnose anyone with anything specific. And I love this catch-all term of emotionally immature, of like whatever that means to you, whatever it was, they're not like if your parent is not able to have these mature conversations with you, and tend to your needs in the way that you deserved. So it's
Yeah,
validating, and then there's like a call to action toward the end too. It's great. I highly recommend.
awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, as you know, as a family therapist, and we just talked. Just said your system. The two people that are, hopefully two people that you learn the most from are probably your parents. And I had a conversation with another uh this person, forgive me, I don't know if it was a therapist, a colleague, whatever, or another coach, it could have been somebody, but we were talking about shame as an emotion, which is, oh God, I know there's like no bad emotions, but shame's a pretty rough one. And I was saying to them that it's actually very ironic and I think just kind of interesting that the first time you experience shame is normally your parent is shaming you for maybe it's like a disciplinary, but that's your introduction to this emotion in the world. So if people have, have a lot of shame maybe in their adulthood, it's it's really tugging at a core wound that perhaps was created in childhood when you were, when your parent, maybe that first instance that you normally experience shame is when maybe I always say is normally a disciplinary, it's not the parent means to impart shame on you, but that's your main source of it as you're a new person in this world. And that's why I think that when you have to, I mean, I'm sure Brene Brown has a study on this because she's the shame queen, but
Oh,
um, that is pivotal and your healing because and to look back at that instance in your childhood and you can't look, speaking of, I know we were talking about too before this call, internal family systems, and everybody knows on this podcast I love talking about internal family systems. I like would love to meet Richard Schwartz one day. I would like thank him profusely for the work that he's done, but that's why dealing with exiles, those wounded inner children, is so painful. And that's why we put them in the basement and we call them exiles because we don't want to touch them.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that's why I love distinguishing between um guilt and shame
Yes.
because you can instill a sense of guilt by pointing out a behavior that
Mhm.
uh was not appropriate or something like that. But when you try to shame a child, it's less about a behavior and more about who you are, which is why
Mm,
I love this like parenting movement. I know it can get a little bit granular and get a little bit nitpicky, and I know new parents are not like loving that part, but the intention behind it and being like, let's not make a child feel like they are bad. A
yes.
child is not bad if they can do a bad thing, but they're not a bad child. And I think, unfortunately, that's what a lot of adults have internalized, that kind of messaging from childhood. If I do a bad thing, I'm bad.
I'm bad, yes. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, that means shame tells you I am bad, where guilt is I feel bad. And one is, as you know, very tied to your identity. The other is a feeling. And that's what I always tell people, be very careful with that inner voice and your inner self, how you talk to yourself, because that one word, am versus feel, so different when it comes to shaping who you are and, how your perspective and how, I always say to myself, like, just be careful how you talk to yourself. They call it spelling, casting spells for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure you know the power of, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and deep dialectical behavioral therapy. That's why positive affirmations, I am statements, I statements are so powerful with the brain, because of that fact, because that they are tied to your identity.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It informs how you feel about yourself, the way that you talk about yourself, and
Yeah,
which informs everything, your whole
I
life.
know.
Yes.
I always say too, like the relationship you have with yourself is the one, it's the most, probably the most challenge. You're going to spend more time with yourself than any other person. I don't care what you say. You can, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but you're going to spend more time with you than any other person in your life. So be kind to yourself, nurture yourself, get help if you need it, like, cause if you don't tend to the relationship with yourself, I'm sure you've seen with your clients and I've seen with mine too, the other relationships just, that it sets the tone for the other ones.
Yeah, that's why I also love IFS. Just even like the title of Dick Schwartz's book of like no bad parts, just that like
No, yeah, no bad parts. Yeah, there's
oh,
no bad.
I love them all, but there needs to be some acceptance around it, some acceptance around your own quirks and your own shortcomings,
Yeah.
even the parts that are uncomfortable for you to tolerate.
Yeah. Oh no, I know, like, for instance, I know that, like, when I'm not in my true core self, I know, like, my protective parts very well. Like, I know one of them shows up as anxiety. Do I like my anxiety? No. Do I respect it? Yes. Does it come up often? Yes. And I just look at it and I'm like, all right, you're here. You know what I mean? And it's also, I know it's there to wanting to protect me. It's out of survival. That's how our bodies are wired. So that's why I can, like, talk myself, and normalize it for myself. I've learned, but that took me 37 years to figure that out. I mean, this didn't happen overnight that I have this now skill and coping mechanism that really works for me now, but it really opened my eyes to seeing myself not as broken, or not, as we say, like, non-pathologizing, not with a disorder. Yes, I feel anxiety, but I am not anxiety, going
Yeah.
back to the, like, I feel I
Yeah, I
am
was
thing.
gonna say, so similar to what we were just talking about with shame, like over-identifying with your own tendencies and parts of you is tricky territory to feel like
Yeah.
that's what you are versus that's part of you.
Yeah, and I feel like too, I don't know, and I'm sure you feel the same way, love your perspective, is that oftentimes I feel like we say, like, I am statements for feelings, and feelings are fleeting. So you could be something and then 2 seconds later feel it. But so that's why I always stress I feel versus I am, because a feeling, it in 2 seconds, as I said, could be gone. And if you're gonna tie your identity to something so fleeting, like, like, that's why when went back to where you were talking about, values and belief systems. That's what I feel, and I work with my clients on defining core values as a coach. I feel like those are things that are foundational, strong. You can, yes, tie your identity to, but a feeling, I would my advice would be to people, try not to, form an identity around a feeling, because feelings are very, very malleable.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The language around feelings, there's a lot that
Oh yeah. I could talk all day about the language around feelings.
yeah, there's I am that's over identifying. And then there's also I feel. We use the phrase I feel when really we're talking about what we think sometimes. I feel like
True. Very true. Very
oh,
true.
that's not a feeling. I feel like that's not right. That's not fair. I'm like, I think that's unfair.
Mm,
Feeling. So
true.
verbiage around that's pretty tricky when it comes to asking people how they feel and being like, wait, rewind, not a feeling.
Exactly. No, that's actually very good. That's a really good point because I know just the way our brains are wired, your feeling brain is going to react quicker than your logical brain. So the I think part's going to come up. That's maybe why people say I feel because it like you're literally your part of your brain that processes feelings is moving faster than your logical side. So I don't know if that makes sense or if, I mean I'm sure obviously I'm not the only person that probably said that before, but that's probably why you say like I feel, and maybe it is a logical thing that you think you're feeling because your other side of your brain hasn't caught up with you yet.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think that's part of why it's difficult to, you might be feeling something in a given moment, but struggle to find the words for it because the
Mm,
logical part hasn't come online to name it yet.
yeah. No, but Danielle, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I always love talking to a fellow marriage and family therapist. We are very special. I'm very biased, of course, because
Y'all are.
not to say I don't love any of her. I love all therapists. Don't get me wrong. Love them all. Social workers, LPCs. Everybody's doing their part in this very, very interesting world. I'll usually say that we live in. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I really appreciate you. And good luck with them. Please just tell everybody if they're in the Philadelphia area, you are accepting new clients.
I am. Yep.
Okay,
Haven
so
Therapy Collective. Um, yeah, on Instagram. I have my website. I
perfect.
have a blog all over the place.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. And as always, you can find the Feeling and Healing podcast on my YouTube channel, Feeling and Healing, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify.